Hey y'all, my name's Katie, and today I'm going to be attempting to paint some Misty Pine Mountain. Feel free to paint with me, and we'll try not to screw it up too bad. And if we do, we'll have a drink ready to make us feel better. So grab an age-appropriate drink, and let's get to it. What you'll need is a canvas. Mine is 11 by 14, just a really cheap Artist Loft one. 4 different types of paints. We have titanium white, burnt sienna, phthalo blue, and phthalo green, all again Artist Loft or Soho Urban Artist. I have palette paper. You can also use saran wrap with some painter's tape or paper plates or whatever you need to use. A cup of water, an adult beverage, whichever you choose, or any kind of beverage really. You need an inch long brush, a flat brush, and a detail brush. You can see mine are all very worn. And then also I have a palette knife to help with us mixing colors and a napkin. All right, so to begin our painting, we're gonna have our brushes to the side. We have our, again, water, our adult beverage. We're not gonna mix them up. Happened before, it's embarrassing. We're gonna try not to do it. And we have our brushes and our palette paper and our paints for easy access right there. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is take a drink from our beverage and give ourselves some courage. All right, so then we'll take our palette paper, put some titanium white on there. Pretty good amount. We're going to use a fair bit, probably like a quarter size. And then maybe a dime size of sienna brown. Dime size of phthalo blue. And a dime size of phthalo green. And yeah, you can see mine are well used. You can just pick that off once or twice, which is great. And then what we'll do is we'll dip our paintbrush in some water. Try not, again, to get it in our adult beverage. And then we'll get some of this titanium white. Kind of just sweep it back and forth. Probably 2/3 up the page. You can't really see it, but that's okay. It's just going to help us with blending. And we're using our 1-inch brush. And we're going to leave it in there. You want to always leave your brushes in the water because otherwise it'll dry and just your brushes end up like totally messed up. Also with the acrylics, it dries like a polymer. So if you get it up into the bristles, your brush will never, ever recover. So just be aware of that. So we got our white. What we'll do next is mix some of our colors. So we'll take a little bit of white with our palette knife. And again, this is because if you get your bristles up in there, it's going to screw them up. A little bit of blue, a little bit of green, tiny bit of brown, and we'll mix it all together. So what we're going to do, what we're trying to do is the trees in the back. And these are going to be much less saturated because they're like way in the back of the mist. And that's kind of how it works. Palette knives are also good for scraping your paint all together so you can get as much as you need. All right, so that's probably good. Maybe a little bit more blue in there, a little bit darker. And that's perfect. We'll put that also in our water. And then we'll take this flat brush, dip it in the water, kind of wipe it off on our napkin. Pick up some of this blue. And on this white, we'll kind of just do little dashes where we want. That's actually pretty saturated. So what we're going to do is take more white. Again, just try and not get it up in the bristles, but you totally can mix like this too. And again, it helps if you leave it in the water afterwards. That'll kind of help it along. Just lines wherever we think we want our trees to be. Nature isn't uniform, so you want them just kind of randomly spaced. I'm thinking of a forest like right in the middle, or maybe a little off to the side. We can do a little more trees over here too. And that'll look good. And then we'll one little forest, some mist, and maybe another forest and the front trees. But so what we'll do is take the sharper side of our flat brush and kind of do little dots and then make little dashes. And that's going to be our tree. And these trees, they're like pine trees, so they're also going to be more like triangles. So at the top is going to be narrow, and then we're going to widen it out. And again, there's a mist, so you also don't have to worry too much about getting every single leaf all the time. And again, with the sharp side of the brush, little dots, and then kind of dashes. And then make it kind of radiate out as you go down. We'll just keep doing that. Keep doing that, little dots. And if you screw up, say, oh yeah, no, it's lost in the mist. No worries. And yeah, again, it's going to look a little bit further back if it's less saturated, so that works out. Again, little dots. And then dashes. This also is all the same color. You can make your tree trunks a little bit darker if you want to. We'll probably do that in just a second, and I'll show you how. But if you got a darker color, that's totally fine too. And we'll do some random ones down here too to make it look like maybe there's more mist. You can also leave them blank. Like this one, we'll just leave blank because some trees just aren't going to have needles, and that's okay too. No problem. The thing about nature is that it's never uniform. There's no straight lines in nature, so that is totally fine. And some trees just they're not doing as good. They're not doing as well as the other trees, and that's totally fine. That's their prerogative. They can if they want. And again, I'm just going to go randomly down and do some more lines, just holding my wrist straight and sweeping along the page. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And some of them too might have a longer time before there are any pines. All right, and then we'll also, we'll do two colors. So we'll add a little bit more blue in here and mix it in with our brush. Again, it's not the best. You should probably use a palette knife, but whatever. It's fine. And then we'll do that to kind of add some color to our tree trunks and make them stand out a little bit more. And I'm just going to do little dashes where the tree trunks are. And you can do some extra ones too if you want. And that just will make it look a little like it stands out a little bit. And again, I'm not washing my brush off in between this because it's the same color family. So if they're kind of in the same family, you can get away with it. You don't have to, but if you're changing colors completely, you will want to wash your brush off because then it'll look really muddy and gross and disgusting. So, and then we'll also do a lighter color and kind of add more to this bottom part so it looks more together, adds a little bit more complexity, and makes it look like there's more to this forest than just like disappearing in the mist. But yeah, you can just sweep it back and forth and down. And we have our first little set of trees. All right, so we'll just let our top trees dry for a little bit, and then we'll move on to our next set of trees, which is lucky because then we can just use the same color that we already mixed. So we'll take our palette knife. I'll be good. I'll try and remember it because I always forget. We'll kind of mix this color. So again, our next set of trees probably going to be around this, and it's going to be more saturated. So we need this color more. We'll take some more blue, some more green. Don't be stingy. You can add a little bit. You can add a little bit. Again, this is more saturated. We're going to do one more layer though, so you don't want it to be completely saturated because then you'll kind of shoot yourself in the foot. It'll be too saturated. We'll take some of this off to the side too, add a little bit of brown, and blue and brown is going to give us kind of a black. So we'll add more blue to that. And this will be our trunks. That's a little too blue, so we'll add a little bit more brown in there. And again, you can mess around with colors. See, there we go. That's black. It does. This is when I would wash my palette knife. So I'm going to put it down. Oops, my detail brush fell. And I'm going to wipe it off. Good as new. And then we're going to mix some more of this blue. And we want a little bit of white in there, so we can grab our other blue, or we can grab a little bit of white. We can put it in here. Because again, we're going to have one more layer. We don't want it to be completely saturated, but we want it a little bit more. And we'll add a little bit more green too, because now it's starting to look like more trees, more of a forest. And again, we'll push it all together with our palette knife so that we have enough. All right, and there we go. This is our next color, and it's going to be around right here. And then our first, our final layer will be down here. So we'll take our medium flat brush. We'll clean it up a little bit. You don't have to worry too much. Again, it's in the same family. It's going to be a little darker, so it won't really show up. We'll take this black color and we'll get it nice and saturated on our brush. And then same thing, we'll just do little cuts where we want it. And if they're not perfect, that's okay too. And we want it to be a little bit high. So right here, we can also do where we want our next one to be, which is like down here. This acrylic painting is pretty forgiving. You don't have to worry too much because you can always just cover it. The white is a little bit opaque, so it might take a little bit more time, but you can always cover it. And we'll just keep going. You don't have to add a ton of trees, but that's a pretty good amount. Again, nature isn't uniform, so as many or as little as you like. All right. So I'm not going to wash my brush because it's fine this way. It can be a little dark. We'll pick up some of this blue and we'll start the same thing. We'll start doing a little dots at the top and then start making little dashes at the bottom. It's a little bit watery, you can see, so I'll pick up more paint. I'll kind of swish it around in there. Again, I'm going to try and not get it in the bristles because that's really going to fuck up my brush, but that's okay too. And you can see it's a little bit darker than this one because it's closer, which is totally fine, which is what we kind of want as well. And we'll do a little bit bigger trees too because they are going to be closer. And same thing, just kind of follow, use these sticks as your guide with what your trees are going to be. So it's okay if they overlap. It looks natural that way. But also be aware that if it's just a solid block of color, that doesn't look too natural either. But try your best. And we'll pick up more color as we need. Make sure to load up our brush. Again, just dot, dot, and dash, dash, dash. Kind of like Morse code, right? And we'll bring some down here too. But we don't want it to go all the way down because we want a little bit of mist in between so it differentiates it a little bit. And my brush is getting a little dry. I'm going to take more white and then just keep going. Just more dashes. Again, you don't have to do every tree if you don't want to. We'll do a couple down here that are just random lines. Yeah, we'll keep going. Like again, if you don't want to do every tree, that's totally fine. Random is honestly more natural, so it works out. It works out great. It works out great. Let's keep going. This one, and again, if you get a stump that you don't really like, feel free to cover it up. No worries. We can also go over it, or at the very end, we're going to add some white, so we can add some mist over it too. Again, you saw where I with the palette knife, I'm just going to use this to cover it up. It's like it never happened. You can't even tell. You can't even tell. And that's looking not too bad. Not too bad. Sometimes it looks real bad and you feel really bad, but this one's not bad. Not too bad. Alright, so that's going to be our other layer. Again, we'll just do some dashes to make it look a little random. These trees are going to cover most of this, which is totally fine. But if you do have a lot of dashes, you can also do a block of color if you feel like it too. And I'm picking up extra paint with my paintbrush as I go over it. So that looks very misty, very nice. Alright, sweet. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we'll take our big brush. We'll get all that excess paint off. Oop, wipe it off on our napkin. There's a little bit of blue on there. It's okay. I just slosh water everywhere, which is fine too. We'll pick up some of this white, kind of dab it a little bit on our palette paper. So that is just white, and we'll cut through with the sharp side of it and kind of blend it back in with this tree line so that it looks a little bit misty. You can see the gradient is getting lighter at the bottom and darker at the top. We'll wipe it off on our napkin. You don't have to wash it every time. In fact, you don't want to all the time because sometimes you pick up a ton of water and it just gets everywhere, which is also not good. So we're going to start again at the bottom with our pure white, and we'll just go back and forth into our tree line. If you pick up a little bit of blue, totally fine. That's kind of what we want. It looks a little misty, but I will wipe it off then on my napkin and pick up more white, and then I'll just start where I was kind of picking up too much blue, and I'll take the white and just make little cuts through it. Try and keep it straight. If you don't, just wipe off, pick up a little bit more white, and go through again. No worries. And again, if it's a little bit of blue, totally fine, no worries. And we'll just be kind of making random cuts through our trees, make it look like the mist is kind of coming through the tree line instead of just all stagnant trees. And you can see that looks pretty nice. And then we can wash off our brush or wipe off our brush on the napkin again, pick up some white for back here, and kind of blend and do the same thing. Just cut through the tree line, make it look like there's a little bit of mist coming through. If you have water, it doesn't work as much. We'll kind of desaturate some of this. So again, start at the bottom and just sweep it through. And that looks great. And we'll do a little bit more down here. All right, cool. So before we move on to our main trees, we'll also add a little bit of trees in the mist of over here. And to do that, we'll take our flat brush, kind of wipe it off. Don't worry too much. If you have paint on it still, we're going to use it the same color. We'll pick up this same blue that we used for the trees, and then we can, don't go into your tree line, but if you go a little bit above and do a little mark at the top, same thing, little dots and dashes, but don't let it go all the way down into this other tree line. It'll look like some of them are completely lost in the mist. And same thing, we'll do another one, and then dashes. This looks a little like a box, but that's okay too. We'll just make it bigger. And then we'll do one over here too. So just a line, and then just little dashes. It also helps if it's not quite as saturated. So if you want to take a little bit of white and add it in there, that'll probably be more effective. So again, I can just redo on top of this because it looks a little bad, and just go through. And if you really don't like it, you can wait till it dries and add a little bit of white, kind of cover that up. So no worries. And yeah, if you really don't like it, you can take your drink and take a sip. That's why we have it, right? All right, so we will do our final little bit, which is going to be the bottom trees down here. Same thing, we'll take our flat brush, wash it off a little bit. Don't be too concerned if you can't get everything off. This black over here, you know what? I always forget. We're going to use our palette knife. So what we're going to do is take our palette knife. This black is a little bit of blue, so we'll add a little bit more brown, a little bit of blue, and we'll really make a black. All right, that looks good. That will be our trunks of the trees, and then we'll wipe this off. You can see that's a nice black color. And then with this blue, we'll just add a lot of green because this is going to look like real pine trees now. So we want it to be very green, not terribly green. We still want it to kind of mix in with this color palette. This is a little bit light. We want fully saturated trees. Ooh, I added a lot of blue there. See how it goes. That's still pretty blue, so we'll add more green. Yeah, that looks fine. Yeah, it's a little blue. All right, we'll add this as our backup. Is just green. You can also add a little bit of yellow too if you get too much blue. That's totally fine. So we got a little bit of blue, a little bit of green, a little bit of black. We'll take our flat brush again, wipe it off, get this black, and do more lines where we want the trees. They can go up into our mist. And you want to wait a little bit for this white to dry too so you don't just pick it up with you, because then it'll all kind of look muddled together. I have a lot of water on my brush, so you can either wipe it off on your napkin or you can just add more paint. We'll just go that route, and we'll do it all across the bottom. And that's going to look good. All right, so we'll do some black, a couple trees. This is more like a dark blue, but that's fine. Okay, wipe it off because it's all wet. And we'll just do random little cuts. We don't want it to look too dark. So we'll only do a couple. And we'll come over with our brush still with black on it. We'll pick up this green. And we'll do a couple of that. This one I'm not going to dot down because we want our tree trunk to be dark. So we'll just start in the middle with the green. And again, just make little dashes all the way down. If it starts to get, you can see the white underneath, just pick up more paint. No worries. And we're going to be using more paint for this. And just keep making little cuts all the way down. Again, some trees aren't going to have it. That's totally fine. But we want it to really stand out from the others. So we'll just go over this black, and it's okay if you pick it up. Looks good. And yeah, if you find yourself with too much white in the background, no one's going to be able to tell if you just kind of cover it with green. Like if you just want to do a solid bit of green and then just pick it up a little bit, it adds a nice texture to it, which looks like a tree. So how good for us. And just keep going. And sometimes you will want to because like this bottom part, we didn't add any white or anything, so it's pretty dry. And you can see it adds nice texture to it. All right. And we'll just keep doing the rudimentary stuff we've been doing because Next, we'll do our detail brush and add a few individual pines, make it look really stand out. And again, just quick, nice quick little dashes. Couple of bald pines, totally fine. Try not to get it all over your table. If you do, that's what the drink is for, right? And we'll just kind of cover this last part. Yeah, perfect. All right, so then we'll put this in there. We'll get our detail brush, put it in the water, wipe it off on our napkin and make the tip nice and sharp. Get our paint loaded up, and we can do little dots on the sides of the branches and make it look like little pine needles. And you can do a couple on the top too if you want. And this is kind of more pointillism, so little dots all over the pine needles. Give me little dots. You don't have to do a ton. Keep picking up paint if you run out. And again, this is also where we can add little trees in the background, so we'll wipe our paintbrush off. Just a ton of the paint. You don't have to wash it off. Pick up the black again. You can put it at the top of here. Just a little line, not touching the bottom of the tree line. Maybe another one. Just like that. Floating little lines. We'll pick up the blue. Again, didn't even wash it off. Little dots. And we'll just kind of fill it in and make it fade into the background. And that looks like some of the trees are closer, but they're still lost in the mist. It's very mysterious, very, very sexy. And again, we can do little dots all around, even in some of these areas that were just fully block paint, because that adds a little bit more paint on there, makes it more opaque. So these are really translucent paints. So you're going to have a lot of see-through areas. And to make it more opaque, you can add more paint. And we'll just let it dry for a second. All right, so after, we'll take our detail brush, wipe it off on our napkin. You don't have to keep it completely clean. That's totally fine. We'll put it in the black, and we'll just do little dots throughout some of the trees in our front row. This is going to be the area that's the most saturated, so you want to kind of show that there are shadows on the bottoms of the needles. And again, if you just do little dots here and there randomly, it looks like you have shadows under these pines. And you can do like one dot here and there. You can do a line. You can do little dots individually. It doesn't matter, especially where you think they're going to overlap is the best place to do shadows. You can do a little bit on the trunks again. Just to show that there's a lot of shadow in this. It's a lot closer. And yeah, especially where they overlap is where there's going to be the most shadow. Yeah. So we'll wait for this to dry, and then we'll get our flat brush again. We will clean it off this time because we're going to get white and we're going to go through with a little bit more mist so that it looks really nice and cool, a little bit spooky. So we got our flat brush. It is pretty clean. Awesome. We'll take our white, get a little bit and kind of wipe it off. You can see I didn't actually do a great job of cleaning because it's blue. That's okay. We'll just mix it over here. Try not to get it in the bristles, but if you do, whatever. And then this is still a little wet, so we'll work on this area a little bit. And we'll just kind of sweep it back and forth. This is totally dry now, so it can look like mist. Same thing like we're doing with the trees. I got it right there. We'll just do little dashes through it. Not too much, but that looks pretty good. We'll get more blue. This is super. I did not do a good job of cleaning. And then we'll fix this because I do not like this. We'll do little dashes at the bottom. And we'll go up top. Then we'll do some over here too so it looks more misty. That looks good. Okay, so as soon as this is dry, we can do a little bit of mist in here too. So we'll pick up, just using our flat brush again, we'll pick up more paint. It's very blue at this point, but that's okay. And we'll go to these trees that are kind of floating in the mist. We'll go from the bottom up. Ooh, it's very wet. We'll wipe it off on our napkin. You can wait till it dries too. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to. And we'll just kind of sweep it back and forth and kind of make it disappear into the mist. Wipe it on your napkin. Pick up more, not too much. If you get a lot, just wipe it off on your palette paper or whatever you're using as a palette. And then we can take some and just sweep it through our tree line as well. You can use a flat side that looks a bit more misty. You want kind of more of a dry brush, which means your brush is dry so that there is a lot of texture in there. And just sweep it back and forth. I got a lot of black on there. And that's fine. But otherwise, yeah, add mist wherever you like. And that's about it. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I hope you guys are well, and please take care of yourselves. Thanks so much again. Bye.